Hi, welcome to Quirky Queen's Journals. My name's Kirsten. So today I am doing an abstract landscape on a concertina sketchbook, kind of half a sketchbook. There's 10 of these tall vertical pages, and to me it's kind of like a taller A6 size, so a postcard that's a bit taller. That's what I would say each page is roughly. So I'm starting with charcoal, Willow charcoal, and then I have a kneading rubber that I will use to put some highlights into the charcoal and create more shapes with it. So I've not used charcoal and a kneading rubber very often, so it's quite new to me, but it's good to add this in. And I think when you're using mixed media and you're comfortable with some media, it's nice to introduce one that you maybe don't know as well, because you're comfortable with what else you're doing. So this concertina sketchbook, like I said, it's got 10 pages. There was probably 20 to begin with, and it's 140 GSM cartridge paper, sea white of Brighton. It's basically Hobbycraft in the UK. It's their brand. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of trying to mimic the shapes that are there already. Just decided that was going to be my approach. A lot of the video, what I show you is, it's just, I show you every technique that I use, but the process, I don't show you every page being done. Done would be here for hours. That's a gel plate. I've put some matte medium on. The charcoal will react to anything wet, so I'm putting matte medium over the top to seal it. On the other side of the gel plate is just pan pastel that I still need to clean off. So it's completely irrelevant to what we're doing. And that's just a little scraper tool that I'm putting on the matte medium with, because I'm putting it on in a way that I'm not rubbing too hard. So I'm actually using quite a lot of it so that I'm not having to rub over and over the charcoal. Now, when I spin the video around, that's when I've dried it. So this is dry now, and I'm using texture paste, light modelling paste by Liquitex it's called. I don't know if that's the best stuff to use to create texture. It's what I had. So I put this on, and between the palette knife and the skewer at the top there, that's quite blunt, I put some texture into the texture paste. So that's dried now, and that creates like little grooves and little channels, and just, it gives ridges, so that when I'm using like the inks and I'm using water, they have little channels to run down, and it just adds a bit more, to me it feels a bit more landscapey, because if there was rain falling or whatever, or there's wind, you don't have control of that. So that's the idea of it for me. So this is Quink ink. It's Parker fountain pen ink. And what I like about it is, I don't know what it is that makes it do it, but sometimes it will slightly separate the colours out. So I'm just using the paper itself. So I'm going between using the paintbrush that I've dipped in the ink and using a paintbrush that I've just dipped in the water. And I'm trying to make a sort of flowing river with it. And I move the paper about a lot to try and encourage the ink to move in different directions. So it's as if it's fallen onto like rock face, and there's little stones maybe blocking a path, or a bush or whatever. That's the idea. So I left the kind of full line of this in, because it's just to show you how much moving the book about makes a difference. So I move it at different angles. I stand it up vertically. I kind of bang it off the table a few times. And sugar it about a bit. But do you see the way that makes that run? Kind of recently got into making drips, and I like the way that it's difficult to control, but you can have some control over it. I talked about it a lot in the last video. So I'm using this concertina sketchbook, and I've seen a lot of people doing landscapes on it. It's quite an Instagram type trend. And what I've done with it is I've tried to very much use continuous lines. So I used the charcoal in a continuous line, the Quink ink. So what I do a lot as well is, because it's quite wet, you know, a lot of what we're using, whether it's the paint or the ink or whatever, I am using this old towel to sort of dry it back to dampness, purely because the way I leave it there is the way I want it to stay, if that makes sense. I don't want it I want to control where the paints are going. I don't want to leave it to chance. So this here, well, not chance, because I am leaving it to chance, but you know, I don't want to come back an hour later when it's dry and you know, it's kind of bled everywhere. So this here is a mixture of Parker Quink ink and Windsor and Newton Sunshine Yellow ink. And it makes a nice green. So I've watched a few of Louise Fletcher recently. She does a lot of abstract landscapes and works with a lot of inks. And she was saying about how black and yellow work very well together to give some lovely shades of green. So here I'm using that Quink ink and Sunshine Yellow mixture that I'd made before. Adding a bit more yellow inks, it's a bit grey. And I'm mixing it in with some heavy body white acrylic paint. And this is going to make a very lovely pale green. Just adding a bit more of the Quink ink. I don't have pipettes, so I'm using a teaspoon. Just got to use what you have. Those inks are inexpensive. That Quink ink and the Windsor and Newton inks are about £4 each on Amazon. So I think that's quite good price, considering the price of a lot of media. So that's a lovely sort of pale green. And what I'm doing here is I'm finding a sort of path to follow, if that makes sense. So between using the charcoal and the ink and the texture paste, we have sort of lots of levels where, you know, the ink will maybe drawing part of the charcoal path, etc. And then I'm using the paint to try and sort of just enhance that a bit more. I'm going for a very rocky, stormy landscape look. And I use a limited palette. I only use black and white, purple and yellow. And I know this is green, but we made the green with the yellow and the black, the Sunshine Yellow ink and the black. And again, just taking the excess paint back off with the towel so that it's a bit more transparent. Because we don't want all the underneath to be covered. This is more charcoal. No, that was soft pastel. That's what that was. And then I used the kneading rubber with the soft pastel, but it's not as effective as it is with the charcoal. So I then go on to the charcoal. I'm kind of repeating the first layer again by putting down the kind of harsh lines, the rough kind of shapes, and then using the kneading rubber to sort of define them a bit more. Some of them I did find that I'm not used to working in such a long horizontal. If anything, I tend to work in portrait mode the most. And I did find that I didn't get as much peaks and troughs in the picture as I wanted. As in, it became very level the further along the picture you went. And I found that I think that I wanted more definition in the shapes. I wanted more highlights and shadows. But what happened, the further along to the right the picture went, I found that it became quite samey and it all became of the same sort of height. And I felt that the top half was darker than the lower half. Whereas the first 4 pages of this 10-page concertina sketchbook, I was really pleased with. There was, the illusion of like mountains and rocks and depth, as if there was, you could look into the distance. But I feel that got lost the further along we went. So I had put matte medium over the charcoal and soft pastel again, let it dry, and then I used some watered down sunshine yellow, heavy body white acrylic paint and Parker Quink ink. I'd used a watered down mixture of that. Now what I've done is I've just added more of the Quink ink in and made this a lot. It's a kind of grey green. What I'm doing is I'm kind of spinning the paintbrush. I'm trying to put it on in not harsh lines, but also not, I'm trying to make it look, the way that vegetation, like the grass, the bushes, whatever, that kind of, where some areas will be more opaque than other areas, and some edges will be more defined than other edges, that type. I basically take everything back off with the towel. I do want to go back to this because what I want to do is I want to go back and I want to go a little bit more. See, because there's quite a lot of layers on this and you're putting quite a lot of work into it, you become a bit precious about it. And so, in my mind, I'll do this video and I'll show it to you. And if you like it, great. And but then I can go back and I can be a bit wilder with it, because in my mind I have made the picture. So this is a purple soft pastel. Now I tried to choose one that was close to Liquitex Prism Violet purple because I wanted to stay with the limited palette. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to make my towel a little bit damp to put it on top of the soft pastel to see if we can get some blurring of the edges but still keep the harsh line. It wasn't, there was a slight effect, but there wasn't enough. So I'm sure I just spray it. I think I'm spraying it with water just now, actually. I am. I just spray the whole sketchbook, and then I'm just trying to let it happen naturally rather than going in and following the purple line and making it move about. Do you know, I think I used a lot of techniques that really do make it look rugged and stormy. There's movement, but there's also like solidness to it. But what I've done is I've really created just a big horizontal line of that. And what I need to do is I need to come in and be braver and make more defined shapes. And I think that's the next learning step of this. Now this is black acrylic ink with water, and that is a pastry brush, and you can get it for £1 in the pound shop. And I'm using that I started off splattering, but I ended up with a big puddle. So what I'm doing now is I'm kind of doing loose up and down, side to side strokes to give the illusion of like tall, like moorland type grasses and shrubs and, you know, wildness. Not trees, but, you know, hardy plants. I think as well, sometimes I just don't know when to stop, because I'm looking at this just now and I'm thinking I probably could have went in at this stage and started trying to maybe make more peaks and troughs in it. But that's practice will help with that. So this is it at this stage. I quite like it here. It needs tidied up. I just think a bit of definition in there, and I think that could have actually, I think the texture, there's enough variety in there, and there's enough quiet spaces still in amongst all the kind of chaos. Needed more quiet spaces, but there was some. So what am I using here? Is charcoal again, I think? No, it's the purple soft pastel again. And what I'm doing is I'm using the side of it this time, so I'm kind of painting with it rather than drawing with it. I did like my colour choices. I really felt that they complemented each other really well. That shade of purple and that sunshine yellow ink from Windsor Newton kind of makes me think of a deep cadmium yellow. So this is just a watered down version of the last paint we used. I think there is cadmium yellow heavy body in here, maybe. I will put the supplies that I used in the description. So I've put down that paint, and then what I'm doing is I'm using, this is a makeup sponge. I got a bag of 20 makeup sponges for £2 in Primark, and I'm just kind of rubbing it up the way so that it's also kind of gives the illusion of in the distance. Do you see here? It's very rugged. There's so much texture. There's so much going on. But it just needs refined and shaped. I like the way, see the matte medium that I've been putting on with the, you know, to cover up the charcoal to stop it getting reactivated. That's made those lovely sort of white rock shapes between the black and purple and the yellow. And I'm going to look at that more as well, because I really, really, really like the effect of how that matte medium almost gives you another layer where the paint reacts differently on top of that than it does on the paper. And so it gives the illusion of another layer of rocks, if that makes sense. So I had just went over the sort of painted on purple soft pastel with water just to spread it out a bit. And this has been dried, and now I am using the white heavy body paint with a mixture of cadmium yellow heavy body paint, sunshine yellow ink and Quink ink. And now this is the prism violet purple, and I'm going to add a little bit in here. So basically I'm trying to make a sort of brown colour, a pale brown colour. Because purple and yellow are complementary, so together they should make brown. You should also know that the makeup sponge, the teaspoon and the pastry brush are only ever going to be used for art. They won't be used for anything else. Don't want you thinking I'm, you know, putting egg in my pie tops with my painted on pastry brush. It's still a bit lilac-y still. I just thought I would show you making the paints because, you know, I spent all day on this. This was a lot of work, even though it's only a half-hour video. But what I did was I just tried to show you important parts to let you see, so that you can see the techniques, and then you can try it yourself. So what I'm trying to do here, and this is what I want to do more of, but I wasn't brave enough to really go for it. I was trying to make different, I wanted to make, you know, the way that you get the illusion of a shape where, so if there's a square, you'll maybe just have one side of that square sharp, and then the other sides are blended into the rest, but it gives the illusion. That's kind of what I was trying to do here, but I need to research it a bit more. It's quite opaque, this paint as well. Which made it harder to do what I wanted to do. I was kind of using glazing medium to try and blur it out into the background. This was very time consuming, and I left it in like to show you the backwards and forwardness of it, the dance of it. And most of what I put on I take back off. I found as well, the further along that I went, the less landscape-like the shapes that I was making with this paint became. So if anybody has any advice on where to go to learn more about sort of, you know, creating depth and the illusion of shapes, etc., if I explained it well enough, what I was trying to do, please let me know in the comments. All help is gratefully received. So next, what I do as well when this is dry, although to be fair, by the time I reach the end of the sketchbook, it's mostly dry, I use rubbing alcohol to try and remove more paint to give the illusion of more kind of ruggedness and mountains, and not so much mountains, it's more like rocky moorland. So what we did there with the yellow, I'm going to do that with this mixture of everything. So I thought I could blend that in with, you know, almost like that will have one or two sharp edges on its shape, and then it will blend in with other things in the background. I don't know what that technique is called. And see if I knew what it was called, then I could research it. I feel like this is a really important process, a really important technique, and I feel like I will research it and I will let you know. Because it builds depth, it definitely builds depth for sure. I do think learning wise though, I learned a lot here because, you know, I think I've used more techniques together than I would have done before. So this is the alcohol. This is just hand sanitizer alcohol. And I'm using it to remove paint to help create highlights. And also to try and take away some of the opaqueness of those two paints that we've just put down. And I rub with the towel with different pressures to try and, you know, like go in different directions with where I'm rubbing the towel, etc. to give different, to add some movement or, you know, the illusion of the rocks or whatever. So I have watered this down a lot and put some glazing medium in, and I am glazing the whole sketchbook with it to try and give a finished look to it. And I do think it brightened it up actually. And I watered it down a lot because I tend to be very heavy with the glazing. And that's just a big watercolour brush. I really like the colours. So I let it sit on it for a couple of minutes and then I lay the towel on top. I don't rub with the towel, I just lay it down and to soak up the excess and then bring it back off. I end up removing that page that I'm working on just now. I remove half of it because there's a kind of funny little cave door that appeared that stands out. It totally stands out against the rest, and it's right in the middle of the whole thing. So this is charcoal again. And I do the same with the white soft pastel as well. I'm finishing up now, and I'm just trying to think about having shadows and highlights, because what I found was I had the yellow line to sort of give the illusion of being the skyline, and then it's quite a light line going across, and then the bottom's quite dark. So I was trying to mix up the darks and lights a little bit more, but trying to be aware that, you know, the bottom's the foreground and it should be a bit darker looking. In my mind, it should be. I like the way, see the texture paste? So when you're going over it with the charcoal or the soft pastel, you know, these grooves are really, really highlighted. I was using the kneading rubber there. And so this is me coming in with white. So I'm putting on quite a lot of the white because I'm trying to, I know the soft pastel will kind of disappear as soon as anything touches it. I'm really happy with the first 3 pages. I think the first 3 pages have, they definitely give the illusion of a landscape, I think. It's the rest, it becomes a bit blocky. So I'm just going to put matte medium over the top of that. This is me just shaking any excess dust off. Now you'll see here when I put this on that it, again, trying to be gentle, not overly rubbing. But see the way it kind of pushes the soft pastel back? It kind of almost makes it a bit transparent. So even though we'd put on a lot there, we lose a lot of the whiteness of it. So this is it. I'm calling it done for just now. I'm hoping that I will go back to it. I'm hoping I'll go back to it. I'm hoping you'll like it, and I'll do another video of me doing more to it and seeing if I can make it, you know, make the whole thing much more like the first 3 pages. So this is it here, and I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you soon, and thanks very much for watching. Oh, and I've got a full panorama of it too. Take care. Bye.